Hello friends, so I'll be talking on the 36th COVID-19 update. So this update is in light of reinfections that are happening in COVID and the anticipated second wave that seems to be troubling many countries and so is the case in northern part of our country, especially Delhi which is seeing the second surge with the ICUs being full. So it is important to understand how this virus may be behaving epidemiologically and what has been discovered until now with regards to the reinfection pattern in COVID. So it's a very small presentation just to take you into some of the things that have been documented from scientific perspective as to how this virus has behaved. So now we have been calling this virus as pandemic. So and now the situation is in a way that the whole question is whether it is reaching into endemicity sort of a situation. So there are two good papers. One came from USA, and there was an other paper which came from the virology group. Uh, so which talks about the probability of this virus getting into this endemic phase. So there are certain distinct viruses which have demonstrated this endemicity. Influenza is one of them, and this is the respiratory syncytial virus and rhinovirus. So these three viruses are group of viruses which have shown this pattern of reinfection and behaving as an endemic sort of a infection. And coronavirus also, the whole hypothesis is would continue to remain and trouble us with endemic sort of infections that would prevail. And the reinfections in all these viruses are very common. So in influenza, RSV, respiratory syncytial virus, or rhinovirus, so reinfections is something that has been documented and is fairly common. And what are the reasons for the reinfection with these? See, whenever we have infection with, say, influenza, then obviously we know that we are not fully immune. And it is not like we wouldn't get this infection again. So we are aware of that, and that sort of a rule applies to COVID also. So the some of the reasons that have been cited is insufficient adaptive immune response, because the immune response to these infections is highly variable in different individuals, and these adaptive immune response, the extent to which one has mounted the response will really determine the risk of someone having a reinfection. So we look into what has been found until now as to the population which are more vulnerable for reinfection. And the second one is varying immunity. See, once you mount an immune response, especially to these viruses, respiratory viruses, the immunity is not permanent. So the immunity would remain for some time and it would slowly sort of decay and fade away. So once your waning of immunity happens, you would become again vulnerable as you were before to a virus. So this is what has been found. And in most of these cases, the time frame of good immunity has been somewhere lying around 3 months to maybe maximum of 6 months, but it is very, very variable. So for COVID, it's around 75 days is what most literature has been citing. Even the response to a vaccine, I think they have looked up to 60 days in most of the cases. So it's not like we do not know after that whether the immunity would still prevail in these patients. And there's something called immune escape that the authors have described. So the immune escape is where basically the sterilizing capacity of the immunity is sort of circumvented and subsequent infection happens. So basically, these patients sort of escape this whole immune mounting that happens after the infection, and the ability of the immunity that they have developed is not adequate. So and they are more vulnerable to subsequent infection. So basically, the words they have used is sterilizing capacity of the immunity is circumvented. So and that is called immune escape. So the reinfection of COVID virus, what has been found until now, seems to be more common within a year. So which means to say that someone who's had an infection, there is a very likelihood if they have lost the guard that reinfection can occur within a year. But for influenza, it has been found that the reinfection tends to happen in a time frame of around 2 years. So coronavirus in that way the vulnerability of someone having reinfection within a year appears to be little more likely. And this is a very important thing what authors have cited, that the viral shredding that happens in COVID appeared longer in asymptomatic patients. And these asymptomatic patients who have contracted COVID and they have not been very symptomatic, they were found to have a very low antibody levels in their body. So this is something which has been observed, and these are the patients who subsequently become a lot more vulnerable for reinfection. And someone who's had more severe illness, severe COVID, they seem to have a better antibody levels, and their adaptive immune response also tends to last little more longer. So, which means to say, in COVID, so far as how we have understood, someone who has escaped absolutely no symptoms, who has had no symptoms, who has been very stable, their antibodies are low, and they are the population which are more vulnerable for a reinfection. Someone who's had a lot of symptoms or may have had a turbulent course and survived, they have better antibody levels and they tend to have this adaptive immune response for a much longer time, and they are more resistant to secondary infections. And in patients who have been severe, it is shown that neutralizing antibodies, when they have looked into coronavirus 1 or MERS, they have found the antibodies can last up to 2 to 5 years, which means they have better immunity against reinfection. And this is a very important thing, the author side. There's something called interference. So, when someone has had a COVID and there is a co-infection that happens later on, suppose there is a co-infection with, say, rhinovirus or with an influenza virus, so the severity of one offsets the severity of another. So when there is a co-infection, this particular offsetting has been found between rhinovirus and influenza virus. So when there is a co-infection with influenza and rhino, so there can be one of the severity of one of the virus is offset by another virus, which means if influenza symptoms are manifesting, the rhinovirus symptoms will be underwhelmed, or vice versa. So we do not know this. We call it as interference. And at this point of time, we do not know whether COVID virus, when there is a co-infection, whether COVID infection severity is offset by influenza virus or by rhinovirus or by RSV virus. We do not know for sure until now, but this interference is a possibility that the co-infections may offset the severity or may increase the severity of COVID infection. So that is something we have not understood. So the key determinants of reinfection, I think the take-home message of reinfection is this slide, are three I's and S. So S is seasonality. So which means with the change in seasons, the virus we all know tends to mutate, and with changing seasons now coming winter, so there is an expectation or an assumption that there will be rise in the infection. So because most of these viruses, influenza, rhino, so they all have seasonal sort of a crescendo decrescendo pattern. So seasonality is one of them. And three I's is immunity. So whether someone has a short-lived immunity or long-lived, which I mentioned in the previous slides, will determine the risk of reinfection. Someone has had a severe infection, he has a better antibody levels and he has a better protection for longer period of time. So obviously risk of reinfection is less as compared to another group where antibody levels are low and he is at a risk of risk. So immunity plays an important role, and so is the herd immunity, what you all might have been hearing. And the second I is all the interventions that the whole society is putting in place. So be it the interventions from the society in protecting themselves and all the medical interventions that are put in place. So this also has an important bearing on reinfection, and that includes all our social norms about wearing masks, hand washing, social distancing, so on and so forth. And we spoke about interactions or interference. So the co-infections that tend to happen, which offset the severity or worsen the severity of COVID. So that also is important. So three I's and S are these. So immunity, interventions, and interference or interactions, and seasonality. So to that effect, there was this paper that came in Lancet on 12th October, so which looked at the genomic sequence of the reinfection. So this was a patient. So this is the timeline of the case reported in Nevada in USA on a reinfection that happened in a patient. So if you look at it, March 25th, he first had a symptoms, and symptom resolution happened on 27th April. So this was the first infection, and May 9th, he was negative for SARS-CoV, and May 26th, it was negative for RT-PCR. Then May 28th, he had another second onset of symptoms, and then June 5th, he had a RT-PCR. So if you see, there were around 60 days. In a span of 60 days, there was a reinfection, and June 6th, he had positive IgM and IgG. So they have done a genetic sequencing in this paper of the virus that had caused infection here and the infection here, and they found almost up to more than 90% similarity in the genetic sequencing of this. So which means to say the virus had not hugely mutated, and it was not a different strain. It was the same strain which had infected, which means to say the antibody levels mounted from the first infection possibly was not adequate to confer adequate protection for this individual. So which means to say the virus not necessarily need to mutate. That's why I said three I's. In that there is no question of mutation. It is only about your immunity. It is only about your interference, interventions, and seasonality, which seems to be varying. So the mutations is not at least proven until now in corona. This is what this paper highlights. And this is the last slide. So again, the whole question of endemicity. See what they have found is if your case fatality rate is becoming very low. In India, we know the case fatality rate is one amongst the lowest in the world, because US is around sitting around 2 point plus something, and India is around 1.34. So which is much lower than many countries, because Italy has seen almost up to close to double digit. So what they have found is this endemicity, what you may see, may typically happen in countries where CFR has been very low. And this is the nice pictorial depiction as to why it happens. See, when the CFR is low, there will be a lot of many asymptomatic patients who survive and who continue to breed the virus and transmit the virus to a bigger group. With less deaths happening, it tends to prevail in a much larger section of the people in an endemic form. So, on the contrary, they found in patients who have high CFR, then the virulence of this virus, see, these viruses get abandoned when the death happens, because this is not transmitted to further group of people, and the possibility of them reaching an endemic phase is low. So this is a very important sort of analogy that they have drawn as to how endemicity happens. Because if you have a very low subclinical infection, the possibility of this virus remaining endemic is very high. If case fatality, it's like a tsunami. It comes, kills the patients, and virus also gets abolished in the whole melee, because once the death happens, there's no further transmission of the virus that happens. So endemicity, so infection dies out with time, and the possibility of this group going into endemicity is less. So this is what has been alluded to in these couple of papers. Um, and so here, so we do not know for sure in India which phase we are in, whether we are getting into the endemic phase or we are getting into the wave form. So for me, it appears the way India is behaving with the low CFR, it is very likely this virus will continue to remain in endemic form, and we may not see the typical first wave, second wave that Europe or America has witnessed, for the simple fact because of CFR being low. I think the virus transmitting in the population and remaining in this sort of a non-severe form will continue to prevail. And the other reasons that influence the endemicity is the R naught and bypassing the pre-existing immunity and the reservoir. So these are some of the reasons that have been cited. So basically the gist of this topic is the take-home message is yes, reinfection is a very high possibility because there were questions raised whether reinfection is possible at all in corona. Now we have understood reinfection is very likely that it can happen, and we have been able to decipher as to which are the group of patients who may be more vulnerable for. So which means to say asymptomatic patients have to be more careful, and we have seen in our own experience, like in our own team, 4 doctors were affected and they were not very symptomatic, and we saw their antibody levels were not high at all. Rather, on the contrary, in ICU, we have seen sick patients where we have done antibody levels and we see them very high, good levels. So this goes on to indicate this hypothesis seems to be apt, that the patients who do not mount immune response, who have been asymptomatic, are more vulnerable for reinfection. And the reasons for reinfection is we have understood, but we have not understood the concept of interference. Now we are in November, December, how the influenza or H1N1 acts as an interference in amplifying or underwhelming the course of COVID. We have not understood. And another take-home message is the case fatality rate being low in India. It puts India into the limelight of possibly getting into this endemic phase, is what I can sort of derive from this presentation. So thank you very much. So if you wish to rehear, you can visit my website www.drpradeeprangappa.com to rehear to this lecture. Thank you all.